Montu, who is a god of war, he's also known as the strong arm of Heru. So Heru was kingship, and what Montu represented was the warfare component, the strategist warfare that needs to go along with it. Now, in Kemetic or Egyptian root, the name Montu, as it is in Kemetic scripture is written, he is associated with strength, domination, and the charging bull. His primary domains are going to be war, royal victory, and martial strength. But there's also like a very disciplined component about it. When we see him, he's often featured with the falcon iconography or the Buchis bull. And the Buchis bull, of course, is strength, and that's what he represents. So the falcon-headed warrior god, he's often seen with the solar disk with two plumes, which I think represent the two lands, often shown with that curved sword that was always very important, and occasionally represented with the black bull. Now, the black bull, of course, was just like unstoppable force. And if we look back, this is one of the earliest Kemetic war gods who embodied the violent strength required to protect cosmic order and Maat. This is what he was all about. He also protected borders. So in a physical sense, we saw him as the protector of borders, but realistically, like he was also on the cosmic level, he was protecting Maat. That's what his role was primarily. So he represents the king's battle power, right? He is the divine force that makes the pharaohs unstoppable in combat. And many of the pharaohs would use some type of iconography showing him like in their war party that, hey, we're going to war, so you got to be here. So this is how Montu came about. This is how he was moving, man. And this is a bad dude. I was looking for this image, and it's one of him and Set, and a lot of people think it's Heru and Set, but Set's on the ground, and the other deity has his foot on Set's neck. People mistake that for being Heru all the time. That is actually Montu. I'm going to look at it I'm going to look for it really quickly. I couldn't find it earlier. I know I've seen that thing online. Let me see if I can find it under Heru and Set. Because what it is that Montu, because he represents the disciplined part of the military, that always supersedes like just a let's get after it kind of model here. Let me see. I don't see it here. Man, I do apologize. It would be a great image to show you guys. Because Montu was called in to check everybody. That's ultimately where he was. He kind of remained in the background. We didn't know about Montu as much as we knew about the other deities, but his strength was there. This is the strong arm of Heru because he protected the kingship. So he is the strong bull, was what he's represent, that black bull, but was also, man, do I have that black bull? I may look for that, but the strong bull, the black bull, was the beloved Montu. That's who he was in a nutshell. So he made it pretty easy. I'm just looking to see if I've got an example of that Buchis bull, because I may have it. It's a black bull. I'm sure I've got something in here that's black bull. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see. Bull. Bully, right? Let's bully. Okay. Okay, this is a form of the Buchis bull here. So this is the divine bull. So a lot of times we're going to say that this literally was the depiction of Montu. This is where they were showing Montu as the sacred bull. And the sacred bull was protector of us, right? He protected, civilization. He protected the empire. He was the ultimate protection. If anything got hot, this is where we went to. So Set was more aggression. So when we talk about like Set, the reason we're not talking about Set or Ares is because they didn't reflect the discipline part that we're saying. That these guys were more of the strategists. So this is what Montu's role was. Like the king obviously would come to him and then he would holler and tell him what you need to actually do. What's going to help you. So in function within this theology, he was the war power of the pharaoh or Nasut, right? Like there's a little dispute, guys. Like I know we're used to using the word pharaoh. Culturally, that's not what the people themselves ever called themselves. What they would have called him was the Nasut or the Nasut Biti. Nasut Biti meaning like the two lands. So we'll talk about that later. But ultimately, that was his number one function, was to protect the kingship. That was his main goal. make sure that the kingship is protected. And secondly, maybe this was more important though, was he was a defender of Maat, which is truth and balance and honesty. So violence becomes justified, or at least his violence is justified when you can say, okay, it maintains the cosmic order. Okay, we're off here. Let's see if we can reconnect. Right. I don't know if we're live or not, but I guess I'm just looking at the TikTok, and I'm assuming it's counting. We're still going. I did get a message, so we'll see. Anyway, we'll go through. So he's defender of Maat. He's also solar war energy. So he is a solar deity himself. He is linked to both Ra and Heru, and he manifests the sun's destructive power against chaos. So war in Montu's theology, it's not about chaos itself. It's more about controlling boundaries. It's about righteous aggression. It's about state power. And it's about this divine military authority. So he wasn't just running around acting crazy. He was very much controlled. And that's what you want for people who are representing, your culture. Like, who's going to be there? So this is what Montu really represented. Okay. This is good stuff coming up, guys. Now, we're going to talk about his historical period, like when he existed and where. Now, he was primarily worshipped in Thebes. So that's where he has a cult center there. And then later at Hermothis, right, which is another major temple complex, and Metamoon. So he is featured with major worship sites and at least 4 historical sites. So we know about him being worshipped. Now, I don't know what we would have brought to Montu because he liked war. I don't know what worship for him would have looked like. But we're going to find out. We're going to explore that as well. Historically, his temples were located throughout the region of Upper Kemet. Now, from historical time period, this guy is first talked about in the Old Kingdom. So we're saying way back 2700 BCE. That period runs to like 2700 to like 2100. So he is mentioned as the regional war god of Upper Kemet by the Middle Kingdom and the rise of Thebes. Now he gets elevated to this state role of importance. So kings start to take the name, right? Mentuhotep. Mentuhotep is, you have his name, Mentu, which is one of his other names. Mentuhotep, which means Montu is satisfied. Very important, like kings would adopt names. Kings would adopt names of deities that they wanted to perform worship on. So Mentuhotep II reunites Egypt after the first intermediary period, and this strongly suggests associating with Montu with the military victory and the national restoration. So Montu is being called upon in this period of time because they're saying, well, he brought the whole kingdom back together. Now, by the New Kingdom, he remains important, but this is a time where Amon is starting to be dominant, particularly in Thebes. So Amon kind of blasted over everybody in terms of like the belief system at that period of time. So Montu became pharaoh, but he always remains his prestige as being the war patron of the pharaohs, or as I would call them, would be the Nasuns. Now, as far as ritual practice, he was worshipped in military dedications, victory parades, temple offerings. Now, this is the part you guys are going to want to know, because what kind of temple offerings does Montu take? Well, he likes weapons, right? That's not surprising. We're not surprised, Montu, that you like weapons at all, right? So, okay. So you like weapons. He also likes trophies, symbolic representations of enemies that could be presented to him as well. I don't know what he was going to do with that. Then the Buchis bull were themselves believed that the bull was the embodiment of Montu. And he was worshipped at specific places. Armat was a place where the Buchis bull was actively worshipped. And, they would keep these bulls around, man. These bulls would have great lives, right? Like, you would have an awesome life. You're going to be fed. You're going to be pampered. Like, they're going to bring in mates for you all the time. So it was all about that. Now, the bull itself, of course, symbolizes virility, unstoppable strength, and divine aggression. After death, these bulls were actually mummified. So that shows you like how much they cared about these bulls. And the Royal Association often evoked Montu before campaigns. So he served as the war patron and he was actively worshipped. This guy never went away. In the theological sense, he is the force that is necessary to maintain order. This was not violence for the sake of satisfying aggression. This was maintaining and keeping chaos at bay. So remember, there's Maat on this side, and there's Isfet over here. And we don't want to give up any ground to Isfet. We don't want Isfet feeling like you're getting any ground on us, which Isfet is chaos. So he was the one who had to strike down chaos. So power is sacred when it's aligned with justice, which is what he was. Rulers must possess controlled violence, and warfare can be morally justified when you're protecting your civilization. So this is really what he represents. He is disciplined aggression rather than uncontrollable brutality. He wouldn't just run around acting crazy. Montu was very controlled, and it was all in line with keeping everyone protected. He's also represented as a solar warrior, and in that regard, he's associated with Ra, Heru, and Amon, all as like deviating his powers from them. So he could be described as a manifestation of Ra's actual battle fury. That's really what he was seen as. Culturally, it meant that the kings also had to be warriors. The kings, if you're adopting Montu's name for yourself, then in some instance you have to be a warrior yourself. And there were tests that they had to take. You had to have power to protect civilization, because that's what mattered most. Even the suit was required to make his function about protecting the entire culture, protecting everyone, even the small. So the citizens fell under his domain for protection. Now, when they had victory, it means that this was divine favor. That deities had shown that you were the righteous one, that you were the path of truth. And we see him, in inscriptions, we see Montu charging his enemies like a bull. He is therefore the symbol of royal military legitimacy and all those things that come out. He was the legitimate part of the throne. He protected the throne, and he was what the king sent out when we, as the citizens of the civilization, or the citizens of the civilization, were being threatened. This is what he brought back. Now, psychologically, the worship of Montu really told us a lot. It means that the Egyptians believed that the universe constantly faced destruction from disorder, which is why you develop deities like this who are protective of the culture. That war god provided psychological reassurance that order had a defender, and so that we would not fall into chaos. Because what they show is a lot of belief in that chaos is always going to be there. He's also seen as saw themselves as the pharaohs themselves were living vessels of this divine strength, and this is what reinforced that you were channeling Montu energy, so you go out and whip somebody's ass too. You had this controlled violence. They did not glorify war for war's sake. Instead, war was a useful tool to keep us, all safe. Okay. Now, timeline was, and this is going to be important, Montu's timeline, I'd say, goes all the way back to possibly 2,700 years ago. So that would give us more than 5,000 years of history that we've talked about him, almost 6,000 years. His main rise to power came on during the Middle Kingdom around 2055 BCE. So you can take that in your notes. And the Theban king elevated him to the patron of conquest and reunification, the merging of the two lands. You guys know there's always Upper Kemet, Lower Kemet. He brought they had time together where they were a unified kingdom. His peak influence was at the Middle Kingdom and the early New Kingdom. He had temples that expanded, and Buchis bull cults were thriving everywhere. These were all representations of him. There was some gradual shift when Amon takes over as a dominant cult. We know that whole period, and he transitions, at least Montu, from being a primary state god to a specialized war deity. By the late period, he continued to be worshipped, and he was more kind of culturalized, right? Like local to a specific area. He wasn't as seen as globally dominant as he had in previous times. But we're going to keep talking about him. He's also now on the modern scene. So if you go right now, and let me see if I can find this for you guys. I'm gonna try to find one for you guys here, because I said I was gonna pull up an image, but let's pull up Montu in the Smite games, because Smite has got every single deity that you want is in Smite, the video game. I'm telling you guys, it's an online game. You can let's see, is that him? Okay, let's look. This is the image that they're going to use. I'm just going to copy this here. And let's see. I don't think this is a very good image of him, but this is so again, like he's still thriving. You can go to Smite. Like I said, if you go to Smite and you're interested, there is a representation where you could play as Montu, and I think that's kind of the cool part, especially when you have deities that have been in existence for so long. So the next one I'm going to talk to is kind of in this vein, like has a lot of that same Montu energy in terms of being a strategist, a disciplinarian.